Welcome and thank you for joining this e-learning session provided to you by Red Wing Software. My name is Corey, and in this session I will be showing you how to enter general journal entries in CenterPoint. While viewing today's training, feel free to use the navigation keys at the bottom of the screen to pause and restart the video at any time. Now let's get started. To enter a transaction that is neither a payment nor a receipt, maybe just an internal transfer between two accounts, we would use a journal entry. To do that, we go to Processes and then General Journal Entries. The first thing it's going to ask for on the General Journal Entry screen is the company that this transaction is for. You can click on the lookup box here and pick the appropriate company. Next, it's going to ask for a name. You do not have to have a name associated with a journal entry. If it's an internal transaction, you're just transferring money from one account to another, there may not be any sort of name associated with it. But if there is, you can specify a name here. If I click on the lookup box, I just get my names, my list of customers and vendors. One thing that you might want to use a name for is if you are doing a bank transfer that you do on a regular basis. If you have a name specified, you can use the recall button at the bottom to bring up the last transaction, so the last journal entry you did to that name. So you could set up a name called bank transfer, and then you could easily hit the recall button and bring up the same accounts the next time. So that's one way the name does get used often. You can just leave it blank. That's what we do. Next here we have the transaction type, and there's two options: general journal accrual or general journal cash accrual. The difference is if you pick accrual, it won't have any effect on your cash basis reports. So if you run a cash income statement, this transaction would not be reflected on that report. If you do want to affect both cash and accrual reports with this transaction, you'd pick the general journal cash accrual, and that is what's usually selected here. Next, we just want to specify the account that we want to use first. You can have as many accounts as you need to on this list. You cannot do journal entries to an accounts receivable or accounts payable type accounts. If you want to affect payables or receivables, you do that through an invoice. So here I want to do a bank transfer. I want to take money out of my savings and move it into my checking. So the first account here I'm going to pick is my checking. Now I just typed in the name of the account and it brought it up for me, but you can click on the magnifying glass here and pick the account off the list if you don't know what it's called. If there's a quantity associated with this, so if I was moving inventory from one account to another and I want to move the quantity along with it, I would fill that quantity out here. I don't have a quantity associated with my checking account, so I'm just going to leave that at 0. Now I want to increase my checking account, which is a debit to a checking account. So here I'm going to type in the amount I want to increase my checking account by. And that way I'm leaving my credits at 0. On my next line, I'm going to pick the account I want to credit. A journal entry, your debits and your credits need to be equal. So here I'm moving my money out of my savings into my checking, so I'm crediting my savings account. I'll fill it in with my savings account. Once again, I don't have a quantity, but I want to credit for this amount. If you look down here in the lower corner, before you save any sort of journal entry transaction, you do want to make sure your debit and your credits equal and your difference is 0. There's a button here for difference. So if you had a difference, if I just come back and put this at 0, we can see I have a difference of $1,000. Clicking the difference button will fill in the correct amount in your last line to make it really easy to make your journal entries balance. Then we just click Save to save that journal entry. It brings us back to the journal entry screen again, so we can do additional entries if we need to. And you're done doing journal entries, we just click Close.